So I'm now joined by Mr. Jesse Jensen. He is a veteran. He has served 3 tours of duty in Afghanistan, battling the Taliban. Most important thing, battling the Taliban. I am saying it again. And also, he is running for US Congress from Republican Party from the state of Washington, 8th district. Mr. Jesse, thanks a lot for joining me on TV9 Bharatvarsh.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to address your audience both abroad and here in the United States.
Oh, great, great. My first question to you, tell me something about your campaign. What are the core issues? How you are dealing with several issues concerning, basically my focus is concerning the Chinese intervention, because there are demands from several quarters in the United States that China is interfering in US election, and President Trump has also openly told about this intervention. So what is your take?
Yeah, well, first to your question about kind of what are the important issues in our campaign, we're focusing and trying to focus as much as we possibly can on bringing jobs to the 8th Congressional District. This is, of course, much like India, the United States is going through the global pandemic, and we're trying to keep taxes low. My opponent wants a state income tax here in Washington State, which would kill jobs, and she's also trying to cut $600 million, well, not trying to, she voted to cut $600 million from federal police grants, which makes every single citizen in the 8th Congressional District less safe, but it also is particularly damaging for the Indian American community here in the 8th Congressional District, who often find themselves victims of crime. So that's something that I would fight against. To your next question on the Chinese interference piece, I think that President Trump has done a lot to try and keep the election interfering to a minimum when it comes to China, and that's something that the U.S. House has acted on as well, and it's something that we absolutely need to keep the sanctity of our elections safe, and we need to make sure that we have free and fair elections both here in the United States as well as abroad.
Sure. Mr. Jensen, China has been threatening the entire world order, including Taiwan, including India. So many countries China has been threatening, and in South China Sea, what you would have also noticed. So what is the stand of Trump administration against such aggressive moves of China?
Yeah, well, I think it's good news that President Trump has put 2 aircraft carriers from the 7th Fleet into the South China Sea, which is a huge message, and it sends a very strong signal to China that there needs to be free and fair commerce in the South China Sea, and that they need to respect the dictates of international waters. Additionally, I'm a big proponent, and I was glad to see the Trump administration push the $3 billion worth of arms sales through to India. That we need to do everything that we can to facilitate a stronger relationship between the United States and between Prime Minister Modi ji. We need to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to support democracies in the region, and India is that. And we need a strong Indian-American tie between our 2 countries, and we need to do everything that we can to prevent China from trying to become an even bigger regional hegemon. So we need to make sure that we're exerting our national might and we're protecting international waters, and we're doing everything that we can to support India in that effort in their conflict with China.
Sure. Mr. Jensen, you just mentioned Chinese hegemony. My question to you is that what do you think if Chinese Communist Party has become a threat for global peace and stability, Chinese Communist Party?
Well, personally speaking, I think it's concerning what we're seeing with the Belt and Road Initiative. They're essentially holding developing nations hostage by choking their economy if they can't pay the loans that they've pushed through. I think that there's been a lot of information coming out in the public media around the Chinese 5G networks that are very concerning through Huawei and others. I think that you need to look no further than the initial days of the coronavirus outbreak, when China was putting doctors under custody who were trying to sound the alarm. They were shutting down the travel from folks in the Wuhan province to other parts in China, but they were letting international flights out of Wuhan. That's perplexing for a good actor to be doing that. It seems counterintuitive. You also saw reports of China trying to incite violence and unrest in the United States during the early days of the pandemic, making social media attacks stating that there was going to be a lockdown in this country before that was actually instituted. And you see President Trump locking down travel from China into the United States as a result of that. And I think that there's a big push, and it's something that I strongly support, that we need to bring crucial medical supply chains back to the United States out of China, because you see the huge mask shortage, and you see other instances of, like Italy donating masks to China when they had the initial outbreak, and then China turning around and selling them back to Italy when Italy was going through the height of their crisis. So that is not the behavior of a good actor on the national stage. And I think the Chinese Communist Party is in fact a bad actor, and we need to do everything that we can to contain them while still trading with them and still engaging with them and still pushing them to democracy and to end the human rights abuses that we're seeing with the Uyghurs and others in China.
Okay. And Mr. Jensen, what is the stand of Trump administration regarding the Indo-China face-off at the border?
Yeah, I think that's troubling. Again, that we're seeing hand-to-hand combat between Chinese army and Indian American or Indians there on the border, and I think that President Trump has signaled that he's going to do everything he can to help India. And again, going back to the arms sales, I think that's a strong message to China that they need to really kind of take note. And that they cannot be meddling in Indian affairs.
Okay, so what Trump administration is going in if President Trump wins again, so what sort of decisive steps Trump administration is going to take to contain China, to contain aggressive policies of China? What kind of decisive step Trump administration is going to take, Mr. Jensen?
Yeah, and again, I'm speaking as a private citizen. I'm not affiliated with the Trump administration, but what I would say is that I suspect you'll see more of what you saw in the first term, where President Trump and Ambassador Rick Grenell, who is the acting director of national intelligence, took a very hard stance on that and tried to do everything that they could to contain Chinese aggression. And this is a problem. We're seeing the National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien here in the United States say that the Chinese are taking an active role in trying to meddle in our elections. He also stated that Iran and Russia were problematic. And you see Chinese citizens coming to the United States. There was recently a New York police officer and former Marine who came to this country under the auspices of fleeing China because he was Tibetan, come to the New York Police Department and actually begin spying on Tibetan nationals in New York City as a member of the New York Police Department. So we're seeing spying at all levels coming from China, and that is concerning. And we need to do everything that we can. And I know President Trump will continue to try and keep America safe using all means necessary.
Okay, and now my question is towards the Indian American community. Indian Americans are a very important factor in this US election, as you know. And basically US Impact, I'm talking about US Impact, which is the largest Indian American conservative advocacy group. How these groups are helping Republican Party, particularly in reaching out to Indian American community? How US Impact is helping you?
Yeah, well, first, I'm proud to have the endorsement of U.S. Impact, and they facilitated lots of gatherings with Indian American communities. We've had lots of cross-cultural meetings, as well as just sort of introducing me to more of an Indian culture. And it's been a long tradition for me. I was at Microsoft, and one of my good friends in the Army, a guy named Mr. Mikecha I was in his wedding. I helped steal his shoes, as part of a traditional Indian wedding. And one of the things that, Impact has done is to, again, kind of get us involved make sure that we're talking with Indian Americans, that we're hearing their concerns. And again, one of the things I talked about at the top of the interview is, law and order and keeping our communities safe. And that's one of the things that my opponent has done is she's cut $600 million from federal law enforcement grants, which are making our communities less safe. And here in the 8th Congressional District, we've actually had a rash of break-ins into Indian prayer rooms, which is incredibly troubling that this is a subset of our country that is being targeted. And that is very troubling. And what we're seeing in places like Seattle and the outlying areas here in the 8th Congressional District is crime is getting worse. And that's problem. That's a very big problem. And
Right. Right.
yeah,
Mr. Jensen, you have served 3 tours of duty in Afghanistan, battling Taliban, which is very important portfolio we are looking at. I just wish to know, in your opinion, as per your experience, as per your knowledge, who is facilitating this terrorist group like Taliban, and what is the role of Pakistan in all these things?
Yeah, so well, for clarity, is on 3 joint special operations tours. I actually had a 4th combat tour, my first combat tour, where I was actually given the task to win hearts and minds. And we had reporting that there was, sort of ISI involvement in getting weapons into Afghanistan, and that was concerning. Certainly what has been reported publicly is that, there's organizations like Haqqani that operate with impunity in Pakistan and in Afghanistan. And that's very concerning. And I saw that both when I was a soldier in the regular army, as well as when I was in Joint Special Operations Command, so Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, and Ranger Regiment, the group that I was in. We were conducting night raids, and we were doing everything that we could to take these terrorists off the battlefield. And that's again something that we need to continue to do, and we need to strengthen our relationship with India because we're seeing that Pakistan is a very dangerous place, and we need to continue to work with both India and Pakistan to make that region safer.
You told me that Pakistan is a very dangerous place, and it's a well-established truth. It's a well-established truth, Mr. Jensen. My question to you that you also told me that ISI backs all this terrorist group. So what about insurgency in Kashmir that is also backed by ISI?
Yeah. I think that it's been very clear, and again reported publicly in the media, that Pakistan's goal is to destabilize Afghanistan in hopes of preventing sort of 2 stable countries on either side of them in India and Afghanistan. And you can see that they're continuing to stake a claim in Kashmir. And again, I think that that's incredibly troubling and problematic. I wouldn't look to comment on a conflict there between India and Pakistan, but again, it seems very concerning, and it seems like we need to again strengthen our alliance with India and send a clear message to Pakistan that this sort of meddling in other countries' affairs won't be tolerated.
Mr. Jensen, in your opinion, if Pakistan has become a terrorist state, as per the information you have, because you have the first-hand information, you have entered Pakistan, you have been in the service in Afghanistan, so you have all the first-hand information from Pakistan and Afghanistan. In your opinion, has Pakistan become a terrorist state?
It's a very good question, and I would sort of rely on our intelligence services to make that assessment. What I can say, and what it seems to be clear from what I've seen firsthand and what's been reported publicly in the media, is that certainly Pakistan does not control all of its territory, right? And I think that that's very clear. That there's criminal syndicates that operate again with impunity. The Haqqani network is the one that jumps to my mind. And that's troubling for the region. It's troubling for Afghanistan, and it's troubling for Pakistan too. And I think that we need to do everything that we can to help that country stabilize itself, specifically its western region, and do everything that we can to make that country a more stable place, so that democracy can flourish in India and in Pakistan. As Mahatma Gandhi hoped so many years ago.
Right. And there are also few information regarding which I talked to you earlier, Chinese intervention in United States election, and the information are of the nature that there are pro-Chinese forces in United States. There are allegations that few political groups, few advocacy groups, and some political entities also, they are they are in touch with China. They are working on Chinese dictates. They are working on Chinese direction in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, I think National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien has said recently that, yeah, I'm quoting now, that we know the Chinese have taken the most active role in trying to interfere in our elections, according to Mr. O'Brien, and that they had a massive program to influence the United States politically, followed by Iran and Russia. And, you know, I think the United States has done some good things, taken some strides. Specifically, Congress has passed the Honest Elections Act. That was a Republican bill. That actually wasn't passed, it was proposed, and SHIELD Act proposed by the Democrats. Both aim at making illicit offers from outside organizations, outside countries, very public. The FBI is now reporting electoral interference directly to the state election boards as well as the local municipal boards. So in the United States, a lot of times the FBI would only interact with a town or a city. Now they're letting the state know so that they can get that information out. And there's other things that the FBI is doing. They actually created a Hollywood-style video to try and get out the information on, you know, sort of the nefarious activities that China is undergoing. And so that's something that we need to constantly be vigilant about and constantly be protecting ourselves against. And the Trump administration has taken some good steps, specifically around public universities and private universities, making sure that we're really doing our due diligence and we're preventing the theft of intellectual property. And I'm sure that will continue going forward.
Right, Mr. Jensen, finally, I would like to have your opinion on the current crisis in Armenia-Azerbaijan issue. What is the stand of United States, and in your opinion, if Trump administration, and I'm talking about United States basically, in your opinion, since you have experience, first-hand experience, in your opinion, when United States is going to take a stand in this crisis? When?
Yeah, and that crisis has been simmering off and on since the war there in 1994 and the Russian brokered sort of ceasefire. And you know, there's reports in the media that Turkey is getting involved, and certainly Russia is involved. I actually served with an Armenian soldier during initial training and talked to him about sort of the trials and tribulations in that country. So it is concerning. I think that President Trump has made it sort of his foreign policy stance to adhere to the Powell Doctrine, actually, someone that he may disagree with politically, but that states that you don't enter into a conflict without a clear objective or mission. So I think that if the United States does get involved, it would be diplomatically, and I think that they would do everything that they can to try and bring a peaceful resolution to the conflict.
Okay, and what is the role of radical Islam in this conflict? Because it is backed by Turkey. Azerbaijan is backed by Turkey, and there are information that Turkey has brought ISIS operatives from Syria, and they are trying to create a Islamic bloc, a radical Islamic bloc. Turkey, Pakistan, Azerbaijan, all are united. So, in your opinion, what is the role of this, you can say it's a radical Islam in this crisis?
Yeah, and I don't know if I would have an opinion necessarily on that in this particular conflict. I don't think I know enough as a private citizen to opine on it. But what I will say is that the United States, I think, sees two fronts that we're battling radical Islam. One is on the battlefield, and we've been very successful in defeating forces like ISIS and destroying the caliphate. And the other front is a battlefield of ideas. And I think that that's more complicated, and that's something that, you know, can only be solved through democracy. And, you know, I saw through education and through, you know, prosperity, bring prosperity to some of these countries, specifically in Afghanistan, where I served. it was interesting to see sort of how sort of terrorism and crime had taken hold, because there was unfortunately folks that had never even read the Quran that were espousing these radical ideas just because someone had told them. And, a lot of that is coming from criminal syndicates like Haqqani, again, specifically in Afghanistan. So I think we need to continue to fight on the battlefield. And, President Trump, again, really did destroy ISIS. And we need to continue to fight the battlefield of ideas. And that, unfortunately, is a much more complicated undertaking, and it's going to take a long time.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Jensen. Thanks a lot for talking to us. I appreciate your joining, and I wish you good luck.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
एक प्रॉपर्टी दो के नाम, बिल्डर ने सौंपे जर्जर मकान, लखनऊ में करोड़ों का खेल, सरकार चुप, सिस्टम फेल। देखिए लूट घर रात 9:30 बजे।